Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our From Waste to Resources webinar series. Today, we will be covering how to prevent food waste at home. This is a relevant topic as we head into the hustle and bustle of the holiday season. Thanksgiving is just a few days away. Many of you are probably prepping for the meal that you're already looking forward to making. Today we have Local Matters curriculum manager and lead food educator, Eli Sparks. Say hello, wave, Eli.
Hi, everybody.
He's going to weigh in on some of his expertise on how we can all be better meal planners while sticking to a budget-friendly options that are nutritious. And then my name is Amy Densborn, and I work for SWACO as their outreach administrator. So let's go ahead and get started today. Friendly reminder, everybody is on mute throughout the duration of today's call. This is to help eliminate background noise. I will be addressing everyone's questions at the end of today's session. So feel free to type your questions in the question box on the control panel. So it's the question mark, click that, put your question in at any point in time, and we'll be going over those at the end of today's session. There also are a couple handouts today. We have 3 handouts. 2 of them are from outside organizations. One of them is on how to organize your refrigerator to maximize efficiency and how to best organize your fridge to avoid food waste. The other one is a fact sheet on how to reduce food waste and other tips that would prevent the food waste to begin with. And then the last one is just the slides from today's presentation. You're welcome to download these during the call today. If you're having a hard time downloading them, I'll be happy to share them with you afterwards. My email is inside your registration email that you received to join today's call. Before we dive into the content today, I just wanted to briefly highlight who we are at SWACO and what we do for Franklin County. So we help to manage the waste stream for Franklin County, and our goal is to reduce our reliance on the landfill. We have a very unique perspective into the waste stream as the owners and operators of the landfill. And we develop services and programs that seek to recover those materials. Here on the screen is a list, or some pictures, I should say, of some of the different diversion services and programs that we offer. So everything from recycling household materials to hard to recycle materials like electronic waste and tires, to grants for communities, nonprofits, and events to help them reduce their waste and recycle more, as well as a recycling drop-off program for all of Franklin County, 52 locations for maybe folks who live in a condo or an apartment complex and they don't have access to recycling. This is not an exhaustive list of all the services provided by SWACO. If you want to learn more, I want you to check out swaco.org. 76% of the material inside the Franklin County landfill, keep in mind this is our county's landfill, well, all of the household waste and business waste goes to for final disposal. 76% of it had the potential to be reused, recycled, or composted. 3/4 of it, that's a lot of potential material that we're missing out on. You may even be surprised to see that food waste is the #1 material inside the landfill at 15% of the total waste stream. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this for you since there's so much going on in this graphic. 15% of the total waste stream is comprised of food waste. That's equal to 1 million pounds of food waste being discarded in our community every single day. That's also equivalent to about 260 pounds of food each year being discarded by each one of us in our community. It doesn't have to be that way though. With nearly 1 million pounds of food waste being landfilled each day in our community, it is more important than ever that we do our part to reduce food waste in our community. This is not just a Central Ohio issue, but across the nation, as much as 40% of all the food that is produced goes to waste. So it ends up in a landfill or an incinerator. That is a statistic from the USDA. When food goes to waste, so does all of the time, the money, and the resources that went into producing that food and distributing it. So just like the hierarchy of the 3 R's, we remember those, right? Growing up, reduce, reuse, recycle. I still think about those to this day. Reduction or prevention is the very first step and it has the biggest impact on our environment and your wallet. If you're thinking about how expensive food is these days with inflation, you certainly don't want to be spending more money on food just for it to end up in our landfill. So what can you do? Let's start off by shopping smart. Make your list before you go to the grocery store and try to avoid those impulse buys. You know, the stuff at the corner on the edge of the aisles that they're pushing out to you. Try to resist those buys if you can. And then pay attention to how you store your food. So for example, some types of produce will last longer if washed before storing in the refrigerator, while other types will last longer if they are not washed until they are about to be used. This is what I would, leafy greens, for example. So now I'm going to turn it over to Eli so he can tell us more about some tips on how we can best meal prep.
All right. Hello, everyone. Amy, thanks for having me here again. It's great to be with you. My name is Elisha Sparks, or Eli. I'm a food educator and curriculum manager with Local Matters. And Local Matters is a local nonprofit born here in Columbus, Ohio. And we work to build healthy communities through food education, access, and advocacy. We offer folks meal planning tools and programming to go along with that helps folks plan and shop for healthy, budget-friendly meals. We do that through education in schools, community centers. We've started having community classes here at our office on Parsons. I can speak more to that in just a bit if you'd like to be a part of that. And by engaging in careful meal planning, using pantry staples, learning how to read food packaging dates and labels, implementing that proper food storage that Amy spoke to, our program participants can prevent up to 30% of household waste over the course of a year. And we'd love for you to check out what we're doing at local-matters.org or on social media. We're all throughout all the different pockets of social media. So see what we're up to, visit our veggie van to shop for some fresh produce and shelf-stable items, and maybe even join a community class. Let's talk a little bit more about some techniques we can use to prevent that food waste at home. So again, making that meal plan is key. Amy spoke to this a bit, but let's go through kind of the steps here. Meal planning is not only helpful with managing our own time. Of course, all of us are inundated with, work projects and maybe getting our kids to different activities around the city after school, whatever it may be. So it's helpful for us, and it's also helpful for us in reducing food waste. So let's think a little bit about these 4 steps here. Before we go to the store, what can we do to make sure that we're using our money efficiently, we're reducing waste by making sure we're sticking to a plan and making use of what we have on hand? So check your refrigerator, right? Check your freezer, check your pantry. You may already have the makings of a meal on hand, right? You may be able to cross one of those days off. On Monday or Tuesday, I know I'm going to be making veggie chili, maybe. Maybe you have all the items that you need to do that already. So as you kind of create your meal plan for the week and think about what meals you want to make, check your pantry, fridge, and freezer, etc., to see what you have on hand and see if you can cross a couple meals off. Right? After doing that, you want to come up with the rest of those meals, right? How do you need to fill that in? What items do you need to cover the rest of those meals that maybe you can't make based on what you already have on hand? And then have that written down. It can be in your phone. I like to write physically still, so on a piece of paper, a notepad, whatever it might be, but go into the store with that on hand. As much as you might be great at memorizing things, it's always better to have it written down somewhere so that you can refer back to it. And then once you get to the store, step 2, once you walk in, and this is another piece that Amy spoke to already a little bit, but stay on the perimeter, right? Try to focus on the perimeter of that store. A lot of those impulse buys and things that are less likely to be on your list for a healthful, budget-friendly meal plan are going to be in those aisles. Not everything. You got to dip in for bread or canned food sometimes, right? But for the most part, you want to stay on that perimeter to fill up your cart. Look through the produce aisle, especially, right? The protein and dairy section. Oftentimes, breads too will be on the perimeter of the store. So stay in that zone, stick to your list, and fill up your cart according to that list. Now, once you're done at the store and you're making your way back home, the key is to prepare as much as you can for your week. So we oftentimes like to talk about mise en place preparation. And a lot of that is as you're getting things ready to cook the meal that day, that night, whenever it might be. But you can take that principle of everything in its place and apply it to preparation before you're getting in for a particular meal. So if you know you're going to be making, let's say, onion and pepper omelets, right? You can get your peppers diced up, your onions diced up, make sure you have those all ready to go, and that that helps you save time as well. Another piece to that is if you realize, you know what, I do have this pepper in my fridge, it's on its last legs, I need 2 more to cover the meals I want to do. I can still dice that pepper up and freeze it and have that ready for maybe next weekend at the end of the week to make some breakfast with. So getting everything prepared, stored properly in containers or even frozen if you're going to wait a little longer to use it can be really helpful for staying on task when it comes to your plan. And then, of course, sticking to the plan itself, right? Once you commit to it, stick to exactly what you want to do. You can make adjustments here and there if you decide this avocado is a little bit softer than I thought it might be at this point. Maybe I'll add some avocado to this or something like that. But for the most part, you want to stick to the plan that you've come up with for your week. And that'll help you stay on track and make use of all that food that you have on hand or that you purchased at the grocery store. So what is a meal plan exactly? A meal plan is a way for you to prepare multiple meals at once, right? So you're coming up with what you want to do for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for each day of the week. Oftentimes, it's helpful for folks to focus on the work week, Monday through Friday, and then have a little bit more wiggle room on the weekend, maybe make use of some leftovers or treat yourself on the weekends. But it helps you save money. Again, if you're sticking to your list, you're going to avoid making those impulse purchases. I know a few items that'll catch my eye if I'm not sticking to my list, right? So you save money in that sense because you're only spending money on what you're planning to eat that week, not getting those chips or cookies or whatever else might catch your eye along the way. It can be helpful in rescuing meals too, right? So if we're thinking about a meal plan that uses again, that pepper that you want to make use of before it goes bad, right? That can enhance a breakfast. So rather than just having some scrambled eggs, now I can add some peppers and maybe some onions to that and rescue some food along the way. We'll talk in a little bit also about reinventing leftovers to help us rescue some of that food that we have once we're done with a particular meal. But that's another key aspect of meal planning is making use of those meals that you've already cooked to reinvent them and turn into a whole other dish for yourself and maybe your family as well. It can also help preserve environmental resources. The more of us that stick to these meal plans and make use of what we have on our list, the less of these things are going to be shipped across the country and then wasted. And creating more environmental issues in a dump, right, or in the trash, rather than being made use of at home or even composted, which we can talk briefly about as well. And we can, yeah, we go. So this is one of my favorite dishes that I wanted to share with you from Local Matters. Again, these slides will become available after this, so you can make use. We have another one coming up too in just a moment. But this is Three Sisters casserole, and I like this dish a lot because it's a delicious seasonal dish. It's great for this time of year, right? If you're celebrating Thanksgiving, this can be a great dish to add to that. It's called the Three Sisters casserole because it includes three ingredients that are the main players in a way of growing, a growing technique that was invented by Native American people. So the Three Sisters companion planting method of corn, beans, and squash. And some of you may have heard of this before. Some of you may have tried doing it. I know I've grown the three together before, and it's great to see how they work together. And nutritionally and taste-wise, they work really well together too. So in our version here, we're using for our squash butternut squash. We're using kidney beans, right? You can make those adjustments, red kidney beans. And then we're also using either fresh or frozen corn. You can use canned corn too. Again, making use of what you have on hand to reduce waste and make it taste the way you want it to. So try this recipe. It's a really great one. Probably my favorite that we have here at Local Matters. And it's a great addition for this time of year, a great seasonal dish.
Making me hungry for lunch, Eli.
Yeah.
So next up on the path of meal prepping, thinking about our potentially our Thanksgiving gathering or a Friendsgiving gathering that we might be having later this week. You know, it's nice to have leftovers. It's nice to have if you want to have leftovers for folks to take home, that's fantastic. But maybe you're with a group of people who they don't like leftovers. They don't want to take a bunch of food home, and then you're going to be stuck with all those leftovers. And you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I need all of that leftover food this year. I want you to check out this really cool planning tool called the guesstimator. And we're actually going to get on it together so I can show you how it works. It's really pretty neat. So just forgive me while I do multiple things here and navigate out of this window. So we have the Save More Than Food .org website. This is SWACO's awareness tool to help provide tips and tricks on how to reduce food waste, and then what to do with your food scraps once they're no longer, they can be composted, they're no longer able to be used. And there's also some information on here about how to rescue food, which we're going to talk more about here shortly. But first up is the guesstimator. So we have this area on the SaveMoreThanFood.org website called the Holiday Hub. And you want to go to this first tile here that's called Prepare Just Enough, the guesstimator. And it'll take you to this planning tool. You want to hit Get Started, and then type in or select the metrics that fit your gathering. So maybe you've got a few kiddos coming, maybe you've got, some in-laws that are pretty average eaters, and maybe you've got some football teenagers that will eat a lot. 11 people, that's a pretty good dinner party to me. That's everybody. Let's see, the next category is how many leftovers do you want? Maybe you just want a couple dishes left over. Maybe you don't really want to have a whole bunch to have to reinvent after the fact. But again, curate this to your needs at your household. That's what makes this tool so useful. Maybe you're going to do a classic dinner party, and then you're going to create the menu. And so it goes through and it breaks down how much of each style of dish you would need. So they separate out the side dishes from the main course, like the meat, and then the desserts. And so this can help you really build out your grocery list when you are going to the grocery store so you don't overbuy, which I think is so important right now too, as food just continues to be more and more expensive. I know I'm constantly in sticker shock when I go to the store from how expensive my grocery store bill is. And you certainly at the end of a big dinner party don't want to feel like, well, I bought all that food and we're not going to be able to eat it all and it's going to get thrown away. So we want to avoid that. So use this guesstimator tool to make sure you only buy what you need. All right, so on that note, we're going to have a little trivia time right now. Quiz your knowledge. I'm going to launch a poll on the screen, and if folks can select the answer that they think is most correct. So I'll read the question out loud for everybody. Which of these labels relates to product safety? Sell by, use by, best by, all of the above, or none of the above? So this is those product date labels that we see on all the food that we buy from the grocery store. Do you think which one applies to the safety of the product? I've got about 30% of the votes in. I'll give it just a few more seconds to allow people the opportunity to select the answer they think is correct. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll. And it looks like the majority of you selected, well, it was a tie actually, last minute tie. 50% of the audience said all of the above is relevant to product safety, and the other 50% said sell by is correct. And so it's actually none of the above, which a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that these dates mean that you cannot consume the food after that date. It's not safe. And truly, it's the manufacturer that's putting those dates on it. And it's really just an estimate of how long the food, the freshness of the food will last. And so it's just kind of a guidance or a recommendation, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the food is past its safety for consumption. And so you always want to use your best judgment when it comes to having food or eating food past its best by or sell by date. You want to use your senses. Smell it, look at it. Does it look visibly okay? Does it smell visibly okay? It's probably okay to eat. And so these date labels have caused so much confusion for us as consumers, and we're going to talk more about that confusion and what date labels really mean. So next up is we're continuing on our road to reduction and prevention. You thought we covered it all, but there's still a few more things that you can do. So you want to store your food properly. So not all foods should be stored in the same exact way. You can find out how to store your food items and how to help your freezer meet its full potential. So for example, I have a handout that I'm sharing today on how to organize your fridge and have how to optimize it so it's at the best temperature and food is front and center, so that way you can eat those leftovers instead of going for the food that was maybe prepared that night before. And the freezer, your freezer should be your best friend. It's my best friend in my house. You can freeze almost any food except for eggs and their shells and canned foods, and they will never be unsafe to eat, which is, we have soups that we make at my house that are probably over a year old, and we're still pulling them out and enjoying them today. They freeze really well. So we're learning about date labels. We all just learned, and I'm learning too, about date labels and what they mean. Best By expires on, the food waste focused nonprofit ReFed estimates that as much as 20% of consumer food waste is caused by confusion over the meaning of those date labels. And no wonder, we're all confused here on this call today. Date labels mean something different for each manufacturer. So the only product legally that is required by federal law to have a date label is infant formula. For all your other products, manufacturers use date labels for quality purposes only. While date labels can help you approximate how long a food has been around, you really do want to rely on your other methods like the sniff test and visual cues such as signs of aging, mold, rotting, to decide whether your food is okay to eat. So now we've reached the recovery stage. We've done everything we can to prevent food waste from the get-go, and you've made this amazing meal for your family, and you've got all these leftovers, and you want to recover those leftovers so you can enjoy that meal again. So my freezer really is my secret weapon on nights when I don't feel like cooking. We all have those nights, busy work days, extracurricular activities for the kids. You just don't have it in you to cook a glorious meal when you get home. Pull something out from your freezer. Once it's fully frozen, you can enjoy it in the future. Your food, once it's in the freezer, as long as it's fully frozen, will never become unsafe to eat. You do want to try to eat it within 6 months of freezing to maximize the flavor and freshness if possible. Not a requirement, just a suggestion. Another trick we use in our household is with when we buy bread from the store. We do not eat a lot of bread at our house. I mean, we like it, but we often have found in the past that it will go bad. So what we do right when we buy a new loaf of bread from the store, we put half of it in the freezer and just leave it there until we're ready to pull it out once we finish the other half. And so you can put the whole loaf in the freezer and then pull it out and toast it up and it'll be just fine. But sometimes I like soft bread for like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Your kiddos might like soft bread. And so putting half of it away in the freezer puts the pause on the button for the shelf life of that bread. And then once you finish that other half of the loaf that's in your cabinet, you can then pull out the one in the freezer and it's like you have all new bread to enjoy. So if you're recently delving into freezing your leftovers, here are some tips on how to maximize your freezer. So my biggest tip to you is to freeze in portions. So portions that you can pull out that can be served to your family or you can enjoy for lunch. So try to get away from putting them in really large containers if possible. This may not be possible for all folks. You want to make sure you're keeping your freezer leftovers airtight. So nice, tight sealed Ziploc bags or reusable containers. And then leaving room in the container for the liquids to expand a little bit, okay? So not filling it all the way to the brim, just leaving a little bit of space just in case there's expansion taking place. Labeling and organizing is also so helpful. You might think, oh, I will know that this is veggie chili when I pull it out. You might not. I've made the mistake multiple times. I'm like, is this red sauce? Is this chili? I'm not sure. I put labels on everything now because it's just easier that way. Trust me, you'll thank yourself. And then defrosting safely. So using your defrost setting on your microwave. If you're not a big fan of microwaving your food, you can also just maybe leave it on the counter for a few hours and then put it in the fridge to defrost the rest of the way. And then I'm going to turn it over to Eli so he can tell us a little bit more about how else we can reimagine our leftovers outside of the freezer.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So when it comes to leftovers, again, as Amy said, some of us might kind of turn away from leftovers, especially younger ones. You might have teenagers or other age children that might not be a big a fan of leftovers, but using your imagination to recreate what you have on hand, or as I'll speak to in a minute, maybe even thinking about how to make leftovers on purpose to make use of what you have available. So thinking about from dinner to breakfast and everything in between, thinking of it in those categories. What can I do with this leftover item to make a breakfast? What can I do to make a lunch? What can I do to make another dinner? So at the bottom here, I have these images of some roasted veggies you might prepare for as a dish with dinner. right? And the next day, you can turn those roasted veggies into a frittata just by adding a few eggs. A frittata is another example, can also be frozen in those portions that are vital for making use of these frozen leftovers. You can freeze them in portions and have them throughout the week. I know sometimes when I do this at home, you know, by day 2 or 3, I'm feeling like maybe I want something a little different than a frittata. Well, then I'll take that frozen frittata portion after reheating it, defrosting and reheating it, and maybe throw it in a tortilla, add a little hot sauce in there, maybe some cilantro if I have it on hand, and now I have a breakfast burrito or taco, right? So reinventing things that we might have had for dinner, turning them into breakfasts, another dinner, or a lunch. And then also thinking in terms of salads, soups, and sandwiches. These are some key foods that work really well when it comes to being imaginative about using our leftovers. So how can I take my pre-chopped onions that we were using to maybe put on top of a chili, right? How can I make use of those in a salad? Maybe I have some carrots that are getting a little older than we like, right? That I'm using for my kids' lunch. Maybe bring your kid into the kitchen and make it a family thing, right? Get them feeling comfortable in the kitchen. That's one thing that we like to focus on at Local Matters, is getting everyone involved in the process of cooking. Maybe they can shred some carrots to put on top of that salad as well to make use of those. And then with sandwiches, and when I say sandwiches, I mean everything from the classic bread on bread sandwich to a quesadilla, right? Or a wrap, making use of those tortillas or whatever it might be, using what you have left over, if it's meat, tofu, veggies, turning it into a veggie and bean quesadilla. One of my favorite things to do. Open up a can of black beans, add in some leftover veggies that I have, or veggies that I haven't made use of yet, chopping those up and making a delicious, nutritionally rich, and waste preventing quesadilla, right? Something like that. And then down to this idea of cooking once and eating twice, or leftovers on purpose, right? Thinking about what I can make use of. Back to those peppers and onions. Peppers are my thing today, I think. But if you have something that's getting a little old, chopping up everything that you have, and then storing some of that in the freezer to make use of later, right? So that's more of chopping once and eating twice. But another example of this could be maybe some pasta, right? Maybe you're doing a spaghetti dish one night, but you have some pasta that it's been open for a little while. You made a little bit of use of it 2 weeks ago, maybe, and you want to use up the rest of this spaghetti. You can cook the remainder of those noodles and use them for an Asian dish rather than an Italian dish. So make a little peanut sauce with some peanut butter, some rice vinegar, and some tamari or soy sauce, and throw in a bunch of those veggies, maybe peppers again, right? Throw in a bunch of those veggies in there, a little cilantro, and create a whole new meal just by cooking that pasta once and using it multiple times. And not just pasta. You can turn leftover meatloaf into a bolognese kind of inspired sauce, right? So thinking about being imaginative about using your leftovers. And speaking of that, since we are here the week of Thanksgiving, the Monday before Thanksgiving, for those of us that'll celebrate that, we have this Thanksgiving dinner shepherd's pie recipe to share with you. And there's a number of these all over the internet. This is one that was suggested to me that's kind of an amalgamation of a few of those. And this is a really great way to make use of some leftovers. Maybe make use of some frozen peas that have been sitting there, just being used on bruises and bumps. Maybe now we can use those peas, right? So you can see here, it's a relatively simple recipe. It takes a little bit of time, but not too long, honestly. Most of that will probably be preheating your oven and doing some chopping if you need to do that. So you're going to be making use of leftover turkey or tofurkey or another option, vegetarian or vegan option. Making use of some leftover mashed potatoes, any cream you might have, gravy, and you can really add anything you want in here. If you're not a fan of mushrooms or someone in your family isn't, you can leave those out. But it's a pretty simple recipe that you can add it to your repertoire of post-Thanksgiving leftover meals, along with those turkey sandwiches. You can make a lot of soups too, but this one's a really interesting one that we wanted to share with you that we hope at least some of you take advantage of this year. Yeah, thanks. Enjoy the shepherd's pie.
Thanks, Eli. So you may also find that there are inevitably going to be some scraps left over from cooking the feast this week. You're not going to eat the onion peels and the avocado pits and the eyes on the potatoes, right? Some food waste it can't be avoided. It's true. And so to keep growing nutritious food, we need to return the nutrients we don't consume back to the soil. So instead, think about composting your food scraps at a community food waste drop-off location, maybe a backyard bin, or sign up for a subscription service where you live. So let's dive into the community food waste drop-off piece first. So SWACO has helped provide grant funding to, I believe, 10 of these 11 food waste drop-off programs. And essentially, you sign up to be a part of it. You can get on your city's website if you live in one of these 11 cities to sign up to participate. All the programs are free. And so if you live in Bexley, Dublin, Gahanna, Grandview Heights, Grove City, Hilliard, New Albany, Upper Ellington, Westerville, Whitehall, or Worthington, you have access to a local food waste drop-off. And what's really unique about these drop-off programs, you can compost more than what you can compost in your regular backyard system. So you can do bones, meat, and dairy, which typically you want to avoid in your backyard system because it could encourage critters to come to your bin. And we don't want those pesky critters messing with your bin and your backyard. And so you can do even more at these food waste drop-off sites. If you don't live in a community, one of these 11 communities that offer a food waste drop-off, don't worry, we have more ideas to share with you. SWACO also partners with the Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District, say that 5 times fast, to offer a compost bin at a discounted rate to all Franklin County residents. As long as you live in Franklin County, you can apply for this program. So most residents are eligible for a $50 rebate to use towards their compost bin of choice. Or you can opt to purchase one of the SWACO compost bins at a discounted rate. We purchased this compost bin called the Free Garden Earth. I'm going to talk about it on the next slide. And it retails for $100, but we sell it to the community at a $30 rate. So it's a really good deal. This program is currently closed, but it will open again in April of 2023. So if you're interested in exploring this program next year, I encourage you to check out their website. That's franklin.swcd.org. You can sign up to be put on their wait list, and they will email you next March or April to let you know when the program is opening so you can participate. So this webinar is not about composting, but I just want you to understand some of the benefits and how easy it really can be. So it's just a low-cost way to create healthy, nutrient-rich soil and in as little as a few months. This soil can be added to your flower bed, your vegetable garden, or even used as a natural fertilizer on your lawn. That's right, you no longer need to use chemical fertilizers. Instead, you could use your compost and then think about all those beneficial resources that you're giving back to the soil. So the free garden earth there's a picture of it here on the screen. This is the compost unit that SWACO provides to all Franklin County residents through that Franklin Soil and Water Conservation Program. And so again, it retails for $100. We sell it for 30. And this is a great compost bin. It is large capacity, 80 gallons. That's rodent proof. It's made from 100% post-consumer recycled plastic, so you could feel good about supporting the recycling economy. And it is a no fuss setup with only 3 pieces that snap into place. No tools necessary, plus it fits in your back seat. So it's really easy to set up and transport. So in as little as 3 months, you can have finished compost that you can then add to whatever system you want to add, whether it's your vegetable garden. That's what we do with ours. It's a great soil amendment for all that clay soil that we have here in Central Ohio. Maybe you're sitting here thinking, Amy, I am not keen on driving my food scraps to a drop-off location, and I really don't have space in my backyard for a backyard bin. I get it. Like, not everyone is going to have the interest or the means necessary to have their own compost unit. You still have other options. So we do have service providers here in Central Ohio that will do the composting for you at a price. Okay, this does cost a fee. Each one of these service providers here on the screen, they have a different business model. And so some service and cater to commercial businesses, others more towards the residential sector. So that would be hopefully you. And so I encourage you to check out these businesses. We have Go Zero, Compost Exchange, and Compost Clubhouse to learn more about what they offer and their fees. Most of them will come and pick your compost up at your house. So you get a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket. They swap it out every week with a new liner. And then again, you can do meat, dairies, fats, oils, and greases in the compost bin, bones for this service provider, because it all goes to a commercial compost facility where the temperatures get hot enough to kill the bacteria in the meat and the dairy. So again, it's more composting that you can do with a commercial facility than you can with a backyard bin. So that is the end of today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for their attention and for their questions so far. Now is a good time to type in your question if you're still sitting with something. And I also listed Eli's email and my email here on the screen, just in case something pops up after the fact that you're not thinking of right now at this moment. This webinar will be recorded, and it will be emailed to you tomorrow around noon. You're welcome to share this out with anyone else that you think would benefit from the information, as well as the handouts that were shared during today's webinar. And then we do offer other topics, educational topics on how to reduce waste and recycle right. We have 3 webinars that'll be offered in December. On December 13th, we have one on how to have a green holiday that will be co-hosted with Columbus Green Spot. So this is about how to make a difference this holiday season by reducing your waste and recycling more. December 14th at noon, we will host one on how to recycle right at work with the Ohio EPA. They're going to be joining us to discuss more about their Ohio materials marketplace and how you can post items that have the potential to be reused. So think about like pallets, steel poles, and all kinds of other things. So we're going to talk about hard to recycle materials on that day. And then on December 21st at noon, we're going to have our monthly Recycle Right at Home webinar. This is the basics of how to recycle right, as well as answering all your recycling questions from a local expert. These can all be found on swaco.org if you're interested in learning more. So I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. So feel free to type in your question now. So Kathy asked a question. Are there items that you cannot freeze? This is such a good question. So providing an example, she says salmon, spaghetti, and meatballs. I can't believe I never thought about freezing my leftovers. We keep them and eat them within a week, but sometimes we're not in the mood for it. Eli, I'm sure that you feel the same. You have the same sentiment. Sometimes you're not in the mood for your leftovers. Here's Charlie making an appearance.
Yes.
And so I'll just jump in here and then I'm gonna turn it to Eli to further provide his expertise. The only items that I know of for sure that you cannot freeze are canned foods and eggs inside their shell. Is there anything else that you can think of, Eli, that shouldn't be frozen? Milk?
No, those were the two that
Okay.
I'm aware of as well. I think spaghetti and meatballs would freeze wonderfully. You know, as long as you get all that air out of there and make sure it's nice and tightly contained, as Amy spoke to, as long as the liquid's a little bit below that seal level in case it expands. I think that's a great way. And then, you know, maybe in a few weeks you'll be in the mood for spaghetti again.
Absolutely. We usually make a big batch at my house of spaghetti sauce at the end of the growing season with tomatoes. And we just stick it, and then we make chili out of it too. And we just put that all in the freezer and pull it out whenever we want it. And then we can make like spaghetti and chili. We'll do nachos with chili on top. Just regular chili with like cheese and avocado and radishes on the top. So I mean, we really try to maximize all the fruits of our labor in our garden, so we can
Right.
enjoy really fresh stuff all year round. Sheila asked a good question. If you thaw a leftover and decide not to eat it, can you refreeze? What do you think, Eli?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I tend not to refreeze. If I decide not to eat it, I'll be honest, 99% of the time I'm gonna eat it because I don't want it to go to waste, and usually I wanted it to begin with. But if that does happen, I tend to go the compost route. Sometimes bacteria and whatnot can get in there. So I would lean towards the food safety aspect and maybe compost what you have. But I'm not positive. Amy, do you do something different? What's your
Yeah,
technique?
so in my house, what we do, because we really don't like food waste,
Right.
mostly me, I really don't like to throw things out, anything, not just food. Um, we will heat it up. So if we think that it's usually like soups and stews that we make, that maybe we're just like down to a little bit in the container and we're like, I'm so tired of eating this. And so what we'll do is we'll heat it up. So it's like almost boiling in like on the oven or in the microwave, on the stove top or in the microwave. And then we feel better about killing all that, potentially bad bacteria and then putting it in the freezer to then pull out another time. And I think so far, so good. I don't think we've ever had any issues with that. And so is that scientifically proven method? I don't know, Eli, but I think
That
it's
makes sense to me though. I'm gonna try that next time. Yeah.
yeah, I think it could work, considering we haven't had any issues with foodborne illnesses yet. But give that a shot, Sheila, and see if that works out for you. Because yeah, you're right. You don't want to risk getting yourself sick. And so if there's a way that you can do it safely, I would try heating it up to kill any of those bad bacteria that may be lingering in your food. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have today, Eli. Is there any other thoughts that you wish to share with our audience today?
Sure, yeah, just briefly, I mentioned the veggie van. We do now have an app. I would encourage everyone to look up veggie van in your apps and download it. You can shop online, see what locations we're going to be at. Again, that's a mobile market throughout Columbus inside the 270 loop. And then also our community classes are back online. They're both in person and we have virtual options. Our next one is November 30th. I believe we're pretty full in person, but if you'd like to join virtually, check that out on local-matters.org. Here's the veggie van, yeah. And there is an actual van. Yeah, there's two now. So, yeah, if you want to check those things out, see what we're up to, and engage with us that way, shop with us, or come take a class. But thanks so much, Amy. It's been great to be with you again. Thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you around Columbus.
Thank you, Eli. We appreciate you being here and sharing some of your knowledge with us. I was just making sure people saw that the calendar of events here. Is it on the calendar, upcoming classes and events?
Yeah, I think it should be on the 30th there. Although I don't see it there. I think at the top there's a little
Yeah,
notification for our last community cooking class.
there it is. Okay.
Yeah, registration closes in a little less than a week. So
And the menu is herbal tea making.
yeah, with my coworker David. So come check us
Fantastic.
out if you're interested in that. Yeah.
Well, thank you to everyone who joined us today. Just as a friendly reminder, we have the Save More Than Food awareness campaign. This is a website called savemorethanfood.org. It has all the tips and tricks to help you reduce your food waste at home, as well as maybe where you could find more information about composting your food scraps. We encourage you to use this resource whenever it is needed. And then our emails are here on the slide. If you do have any other questions, Eli and I would be happy to address them at a later time. So thank you to everyone for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.